Joining us from Washington is Tony Badran. He's a research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, specializing in Hezbollah and in Lebanon. Tony, great to have you with us. Let's just talk, first of all, about this man, the potential new prime minister in Lebanon. How much do we know about his actual ties to Hezbollah?
The nominated prime minister is really a nobody. I mean, his function was in the previous cabinet between 2011 and 2014 in a Hezbollah-dominated cabinet, and he had a minor role in that cabinet as a Sunni that did not belong to the, at the time, opposing camp within the Lebanese politics, opposing camp to Hezbollah. Today, he is more of a prop. I think more kind of a play, a joint play between Hezbollah on the one hand and the just resigned Prime Minister Saad Hariri on the other hand, both of whom have a joint interest in salvaging the current sectarian system in Lebanon against which the protests are rising. And what they're going to do is they're jockeying for position. And once, I assume once Mr. Diab's mandate to form a government fails, or fails to solve the massive financial problem, that the crisis that the country is going through, then Hezbollah and Mr. Hariri will negotiate a return for Mr. Hariri, who would then present himself to the West as the non-Hezbollah prime minister in a bid to attract capital to the country.
Tony, so this sounds all like an elaborate plot by Hezbollah, which is already extremely powerful in Lebanon, to sort of orchestrate all the back and forth about who ends up leading the country. But there is still this massive public anger. We saw it today. There was anger against Hariri. There's anger against this new pick. So how far is any of this going to go to actually calming that down inside Lebanon?
Well, the anger of the original protesters is against everyone, Mr. Hariri included. The anger since Mr. Diab's appointment or nomination has been slightly more manufactured, including by Mr. Hariri's supporters, who, again, want to stoke sectarian anger among the Sunni community in Lebanon, that somehow its flag holder, Mr. Hariri, has been sidelined. And so this is playing by the rules of the sectarian system in Lebanon, whereas the initial protesters want to do away with the entire system, including Mr. Hariri.
So let's talk about the U.S. for a moment, because we need to look no further than that. Senior State Department officials sent there today to know how crucial that relationship is. The U.S. just released about $100 million in military aid recently. And, of course, Hezbollah is not an ally of the United States, to say the very least. How do you think the U.S. government should be reacting to this?
The U.S. government is incredibly confused. It has a rather silly notion that somehow if it props up state institutions in Lebanon, it can weaken Hezbollah. As you can see, the population doesn't want anything to do with any of these institutions. And then the United States then maintains another fiction that the armed forces are protecting the protesters, which is a complete lie, because the LAF, the security services and the army are on video beating up and arresting protesters and forcibly dismantling their places of gathering. But the United States simply is not prepared to see what comes next in Lebanon. It is married to an obsolete policy right now. And it released not just the $105 million to the LAF, also another $115 million in economic aid to the country that will go to municipalities that are actually controlled by Hezbollah. So it's a rather confused policy.
So you're talking about a policy that then is actually U.S. money that is going in one way or another to Hezbollah, an ally of Iran, which of course is the biggest stated enemy of the United States. So what do you think the U.S. should do here? What is a better way out then?
I think the United States would do well to back the demands of the protests, which is that which rejects all of the traditional political sectarian players in the country and demand a new a new political order, a new form of governance in Lebanon, which is why they wanted a new modern electoral law to do snap elections and to start bringing in a new political elite, not this corrupt sectarian class that has bankrupted the country and stolen people's money, and which is a system that benefits Hezbollah because Hezbollah presides over it, and Hezbollah is the leader now in trying to salvage it. So I think the United States should not be looking in any way to deal with the remnants of this system, but rather to back the calls for its replacement.
Tony, on a maybe more personal level, you were born and raised in Lebanon. I don't know how much contact you still have potentially with friends and family there, but what do you hear about what it is actually like to live there? Because these protests are about systemic corruption, economic crisis that has been going on for years and years.
Things are very bad, and they're unfortunately going to get worse. So the Lebanese pound is in the process of devaluation. Right now, it has lost about 30%, if not more, of its value. It's set to lose more. People's savings, which means people's savings are unfortunately threatened with evaporation, and the ability for people, then inflation is going to rise, so people's purchase power is going to also diminish, if not disappear. So the Lebanese people are in for a very rough ride, but unfortunately that's kind of been the enabling of Western and Arab political players in the region and in the international system that have enabled this fake economy to persist, and this predatory political class, to continue to send it money and float it and salvage it. And the people effectively at the end said that enough is enough, because they've pretty much lost everything.
All right. Well, we'll see if they do succeed, because from what you describe, the government is in the process of orchestrating a sort of long circle back to where it all began, potentially with Saad Hariri. We'll keep following that story. Tony Badran, thanks so much for being here with us. An important story here in